The trail closure took longer than I'd planned. The washout had eaten through the Green Lake access maybe 3 days before, deep enough that you could see the culvert sagging underneath. Old cement cracked clean through. I'd already radioed it in that morning, but the sign still needed to go up. And I needed to hike back out to make sure nobody had walked past the first set of cones. Turned out 2 people had. I found them a quarter-mile in, standing where the trail dropped off. College age, maybe a little older. The guy had a GoPro clipped to his pack strap. The girl was wearing Converse, not hiking boots. Converse. Trail's closed, I said. The guy looked at me, then at the washout, then back at me. We saw the cones. Right. We figured we could get around it. I didn't say anything, just waited. The girl shifted her weight. Is there another way up? Not from here. I tilted my head back the way I'd come. Carbon River entrance is about 2 miles that way. I'm heading there now. You can walk with me or take your chances in the dark. They walked with me. I didn't talk much. Answered a few questions about the park. Pointed out a black bear print in the mud near the access road. Kept my pace steady. The guy asked if I'd ever seen a cougar. I said yeah. He asked what I did. I said I walked the other direction. That was it. We hit the parking area at Carbon River just before dusk. There were 2 cars left. One of them was theirs. They thanked me. I nodded. Watched them pull out onto the access road before I walked back to my truck. That was the day shift. I kept the uniform on. That's the thing about the Park Service getup. People see the green and gray, the flat brim hat, the badge, and they stop asking questions. You're supposed to be there. You're doing your job. Nobody wonders why you're hauling gear into the woods after hours or why your truck's parked in a closed maintenance area at 10 at night. They figure it's ranger business. They figure you know what you're doing. Most of the time, I did. I sat in the truck for a few minutes, driver's door open, boots on the gravel. My ribs were acting up again. Not bad, just a dull ache on the left side, the kind that gets worse when you breathe too deep or twist wrong. I'd taken ibuprofen around noon. It was wearing off. The jobs earlier that spring had been messy. One in North Bend, one near Snoqualmie Pass. Both required more climbing than I'd expected, and the second one put me on my back in a creek bed for the better part of an hour while I waited for something to stop circling. I didn't crack anything, but I bruised the hell out of my intercostals. Dr. Munoz told me to take 2 weeks off. I told her I'd think about it. I hadn't. The chair thing started maybe a week after that. I'd wake up around 3 in the morning with this sharp spike under my shoulder blade. Bad enough that I couldn't get back to sleep without shifting positions every 10 minutes. Lying flat made it worse. I tried the couch for a while, then just gave up and started sleeping in the recliner I kept in the corner of my living room. It was easier. I could get up fast if I needed to. Didn't have to roll out of bed and wait for my ribs to stop complaining. Anyway, I pulled the burner phone out of the glove box. It was a Nokia. Old model. The kind you could drop off a cliff and it'd still turn on. I powered it up and waited for the screen to load. One new message. The email account was sealed. No name attached, no recovery option, nothing that pointed back to me. I opened the message. It was short. Coordinates, a time window, a description of the setup. Same format as always. I read it twice, deleted it, then checked the map. It was close. Maybe 3 miles into the forest, just off one of the old fire roads they stopped maintaining back in the 90s. I knew the area. Dense alder and Douglas fir, not much traffic. A creek that ran fast in the spring and dried up by August. Good cover. Bad sight lines. I memorized the coordinates, turned the phone off, and put it back in the glove box. Then I drove. Craig was waiting at the pullout near the ranger station. He was leaning against a green Subaru with a dent in the passenger door, hands in the pockets of his jacket, hood up. When he saw my truck, he straightened up and walked over. I stopped, rolled the window down. "You're late," he said. Trail closure ran long. He nodded, didn't push it. That was one of the things I liked about him. He didn't waste time on questions that didn't matter. He opened the passenger door and climbed in. Craig Dennis was 22, EMT student, did search and rescue volunteer work on the weekends when he wasn't working shifts at the Puyallup Urgent Care. I'd met him the previous fall during a recovery op near Mowich Lake. Some guy had gone off trail, twisted his ankle, couldn't make it back. Craig had hiked in with the medic team, splinted the guy's leg, and helped carry him out on a litter. Didn't complain once, didn't try to be a hero, just did the work. I'd kept his number after that. I didn't plan to. I'd already decided I wasn't going to involve another kid in this kind of thing. But Craig was practical. He followed instructions. He didn't panic. And when I needed someone who could move fast and keep their mouth shut, he was the only name I could think of. So I called him. He didn't ask what the job was. He just asked when and where. That was 3 months ago. We drove in silence for the first mile. Craig kept his eyes on the road, arms crossed over his chest. He looked tired. I didn't ask. "Same setup as last time?" he said eventually. "Yeah. Bait or motion trigger?" "Motion," he nodded. "How many lines?" 3. "You think it'll work?" "Probably not." He didn't say anything to that, just shifted in his seat and stared out the window. I turned onto the fire road. It was rough, overgrown in places, washboard gravel in others. The truck rattled. My ribs didn't love it. I kept my speed low and my hands steady on the wheel. "You good?" Craig asked. "Fine." "You're breathing weird." "I'm fine." He didn't push it. We reached the first marker about 20 minutes later. I pulled off into a gap between two big cedars and killed the engine. Craig grabbed the flashlight from the dash. I grabbed the pack from the back. The trap line was exactly where I'd left it. 3 motion-triggered cameras, 2 snare setups, 1 audio recorder. All of it empty. No movement, no recordings, nothing. We collected the gear in silence. Craig held the flashlight while I dismantled the cameras and packed them into the bag. He didn't ask what we were looking for. He already knew I wouldn't tell him. The second line was the same. Empty. The third line was worse. One of the cameras was missing. Just gone. The mount was still there, bolted to the tree, but the camera itself was gone. No sign of it on the ground, no drag marks, no prints. I stood there for a minute, staring at the empty mount. "Could have been an animal," Craig said. "Yeah. Or someone took it? Maybe." He didn't ask what I thought. He just waited. I checked the snare. Empty. Checked the recorder. Dead battery. I packed it all up and we started back toward the truck. We were maybe 50 yards from the road when I saw it. The alder thicket to the left. Something in there shifted. Not wind, not a branch falling. Something big. Something moving toward us. I stopped. Craig stopped next to me. "You see that?" he said quietly. "Yeah." The thicket went still. The second line was empty too. Same setup, same nothing. We packed it faster than the first. The third line sat deeper in, past a dry creek bed that would run fast in April, but was just mud and smooth stones now. I could hear Craig breathing behind me, steady and even. Good. The cameras were right where I'd mounted them, undisturbed. No captures, no audio, no prints in the soft dirt where I'd scattered ash to track movement. I bent to unhook the last snare and my ribs flared hot. I stopped, breathed shallow, kept working. Craig held the light without commenting. We walked back to the truck through alder thicket that scraped the sides of the trail. The canopy blocked most of the moonlight. I could hear an owl somewhere northwest, probably a barred owl based on the rhythm. Normal. Everything. Normal. I threw the pack in the bed and climbed into the driver's seat. Craig got in on the passenger side and pulled his door most of the way shut but didn't latch it. He does that sometimes when we're still in the woods. Keeps it cracked so he can bail fast if something goes sideways. I started the engine and pulled back onto the fire road. The washboard gravel rattled worse on the return trip. I kept my speed low and my hands loose on the wheel. My ribs hurt worse now. Probably should have taken another ibuprofen before we hiked in, but I didn't think of it. That's on me. Craig had his window down halfway. He was watching the tree line on his side, not saying anything. We were maybe a mile from the main road when something stepped out of the alder thicket on the driver's side. It didn't hesitate, didn't pause at the edge of the road to look or listen, just walked straight into the side of the truck. The impact felt like hitting a concrete pylon at 20 miles an hour. The whole frame jolted. My seatbelt locked. The wheel jerked left in my hands and I yanked it back, stomping the brake. The thing was right there, right outside my open window. Big, taller than the door frame. I couldn't see details, just mass and movement and the smell of wet dirt. I reacted, didn't think, didn't plan. Just reached for the shotgun wedged between my seat and the center console, brought it up one-handed, and fired through the window. The sound was huge inside the cab. My ears went flat and muffled. I racked the slide, fired again, racked, fired a third time. The slugs hit something solid. I heard the impact, felt the recoil shove back through my shoulder and light up my ribs like someone had stuck a hot knife under the bone. Craig was yelling something I couldn't hear. He had both hands on the passenger door trying to yank it shut, but it wouldn't close. Something was in the way. The thing reached into the cab. I saw the arm, thick, long, covered in something dark that wasn't fur and wasn't skin. It moved smooth and deliberate, no jerking, no hesitation. The hand came down on Craig's shoulder. It just rested there, fingers spread, pressing down, not grabbing, not clawing, just holding. Craig went stiff, stopped pulling on the door. His mouth was open, but he wasn't making sound anymore. I had the shotgun up, but I couldn't fire. Not with that hand on Craig, not without hitting him too. The thing held him there for maybe 3 seconds, maybe 5. Hard to say. Felt longer. Then it let go, pulled its arm back through the window, stepped away from the truck. Slow, no rush. I kept the shotgun aimed at where it had been, finger on the trigger, breathing hard through my teeth. It walked back toward the tree line, 2 legs, upright, steady gait, didn't look back, didn't run, just walked like it had all the time in the world and knew we weren't going to follow. I watched it disappear into the alder thicket. Then I waited. 10 seconds, 20. Nothing came back out. I lowered the shotgun and looked at Craig. He was pressed back against his seat, both hands flat on the dashboard, staring straight ahead. His face was white, jaw tight, breathing fast and shallow. "You hit?" I asked. He didn't answer right away. "Craig, I don't know," he said. His voice came out thin. "I don't think so." "Check." He looked down at himself, patted his chest, his arms, his legs. His hands were shaking. "I'm good," he said. "I think I'm good." I put the truck in gear and drove. My hands were steady on the wheel. My ears were still ringing. I kept checking the rear view every few seconds, but nothing followed us. The fire road stayed empty behind us. Craig didn't say anything. He kept his eyes forward and his hands on the dash. We hit the main road and I turned north toward the ranger station. The pavement was smooth and quiet after the gravel. I could hear Craig breathing now, still fast, still shallow. "You sure you're not hit?" I asked. "Yeah," he said. "I'm sure." He didn't sound sure. We pulled into the ranger station lot about 15 minutes later. I parked under the light near the front entrance and killed the engine. Craig opened his door, got 1 foot on the pavement and collapsed. I was out of the truck and around to his side before he hit the ground. He went down on his knees first, then forward onto his hands. His head was hanging. He was making a sound low in his throat, not quite a groan, not quite a gasp. "Craig." He didn't respond. I crouched next to him and got a hand on his back. He was shaking. Whole body, not cold, something else. "Talk to me," I said. "Can't." He sucked in a breath, let it out. "Can't breathe right." I pulled his jacket off his shoulder and pushed his shirt up. The bruises were already forming. 5 of them, wide, dark, spread across his shoulder and partway down his back. Fingerprints. Each one was maybe 3 inches across, maybe wider. The edges were blurred where the pressure had spread under the skin, but the shape was clear, too big, way too big. I pulled his shirt back down and helped him sit. He leaned back against the side of the truck, eyes half closed, still breathing like he'd just finished a sprint. "We're going to Puyallup," I said. He nodded, didn't argue. I got him into the passenger seat and buckled him in. He didn't pass out, but he wasn't tracking right either. Eyes open, looking at nothing. I drove, took the fastest route I knew, staying 5 over the speed limit, but not enough to get pulled over. I didn't need that complication. My phone was in the cup holder. I pulled it out one-handed and called the Puyallup multicare line. A woman answered on the second ring. I didn't recognize her voice. "This is Ranger Gomez," I said. "I'm bringing someone in. Possible bear encounter. He's conscious but in shock. ETA 20 minutes. She asked standard questions. I gave standard answers. Yes, he's breathing. No visible bleeding. Possible crush injury to the shoulder and back. No, I didn't see the animal make contact, but the evidence is consistent. She said they'd be ready. I hung up and glanced at Craig. He had his eyes closed now. His breathing had evened out a little, but his face was still too pale. "Stay with me," I said. "Still here," he said. Quiet. Didn't open his eyes. We made it to Puyallup in 18 minutes. I pulled up to the emergency entrance and left the truck running. 2 nurses were already outside with a wheelchair. I recognized one of them, Dennis Mendoza. Solid guy. Doesn't ask stupid questions. I got Craig out of the truck and into the chair. He was awake enough to sit upright, but he wasn't talking. Dennis wheeled him inside and I followed. The intake area was bright and clean and smelled like disinfectant. I hate that smell, always have. Reminds me of too many bad nights. Anna Munoz met us in the hall. She's the one I call when I need someone who won't push too hard on a story that doesn't quite add up. She looked at Craig, then at me, then back at Craig. "Bear?" she asked. "That's the story," I said. She nodded once. "Exam room 2. Dennis wheeled Craig in and I stayed in the hallway. Anna went in after them. I could hear her talking, calm and clinical, asking Craig questions about pain level and range of motion. I leaned against the wall and pulled out the Nokia. Powered it on, checked the sealed account. No new messages. I deleted the search history anyway and turned it off. Dennis came back out a few minutes later with a tablet in his hands. He saw me and stopped. "We're running imaging," he said. "Dr. Munoz wants a full look at the shoulder and ribs. How's he doing?" "Stable, lucid, vitals are good." He paused. "Those bruises are unusual." "Yeah," I said. He waited like he thought I might add something. I didn't. "I'm documenting them," he said. "For the record." "Good." He nodded and walked back toward the exam room. I stayed in the hall, checked the Nokia again. Still nothing. Checked the main hallway, 2 people in the waiting area, 1 nurse at the station, nobody I didn't recognize. I put the phone away and waited. I checked the sealed email account from the recliner at around 2 in the morning. Couldn't sleep. Ribs were worse after helping Craig into the truck and then out of it again at multicare. Dr. Munoz had looked at me when she was done with Craig and told me to sit. I didn't. She didn't push. The burner phone took forever to boot. Old Nokia, good battery life but slow as hell. I opened the account and found 1 new message. It was short, maybe 4 lines total. Delivery confirmed. Asset secured. Next window, April 19th, same protocol. Coordinates to follow. That was it. No mention of the encounter. No questions about why the setup came back empty, or why something had walked straight into the side of my truck and grabbed my partner hard enough to leave bruises shaped like fingers. No concern about Craig, or whether the job had gone sideways, or whether I'd need medical attention myself. Just the next date. I read it twice, then deleted it and turned the phone off. The thing that bugged me was the tone. It wasn't worried. It wasn't surprised. It read like a confirmation email from a shipping company. Professional, transactional. Exactly the same as every other message I'd gotten over the past 18 months. Which meant one of two things. Either they didn't know what happened on that fire road, or they knew and didn't care. I figured it was the second one. They already knew. Probably knew before I did. And the fact that they were moving forward with the next job date without a single question told me the encounter wasn't random, wasn't bad luck. It was something they expected, or something they were tracking, or something they'd been waiting for. And that meant I was in deeper than I thought. I sat in the recliner with the phone in my hand, and my ribs screaming every time I shifted weight. The living room was dark, except for the streetlight coming through the blinds. I could hear a car pass outside, slow and steady. Probably someone heading home from a late shift. I put the phone back in my jacket pocket and closed my eyes. Didn't sleep. Craig showed up at my place the next morning around 8. I heard his Subaru pull into the driveway and kill the engine. I was already dressed, still in the recliner because getting up took effort, and I hadn't found a reason yet. He knocked twice. I told him to come in. He stepped inside and shut the door behind him. He looked better than he had the night before, but not great. His jacket hung off one shoulder wrong, like he couldn't lift his arm all the way without pain. His face was pale and he had dark circles under his eyes. I didn't get up, just watched him cross the room and sit on the couch across from me. He didn't say anything at first, just looked at me. I broke the silence, told him the work was finished, said the money wasn't worth the risk, and the final transfer had been arranged. Said he'd get his cut by the end of the week, and after that we were done. He listened, didn't interrupt, didn't argue. When I finished, he pulled out his phone. He swiped through a few screens, then turned it toward me. The first photo showed the inside of my truck cab. Passenger side. Deep scratches running along the door panel where something had forced its way in. The marks were fresh, ragged, and spaced too far apart to be from anything normal. The second photo was a close-up of prints near the riverbank. I recognized the location from of the earlier jobs in March. The prints were partial, blurred at the edges, but the shape was wrong. Too long. Too many toe marks, or not enough. I couldn't tell which. The third photo was a screenshot, time-stamped. It showed part of an email in the sealed account with coordinates and a date visible at the top. He swiped again. Another screenshot. Different message, different date. Same format. He lowered the phone and looked at me. "I've got 12 more," he said. "All backed up, cloud storage and a thumb drive at my apartment." I didn't say anything. He kept going, voice steady. No anger in it, just facts. "If you cut me loose, I send everything to Donna Marquez at the Seattle Times and Professor Sage Miles at UW. She teaches cryptozoology or folklore or something. I looked her up. She'd be interested." I stared at him. He stared back. "I'm not trying to screw you over," he said, "but I'm not walking away either. Whatever this is, I'm already in it. That thing grabbed me. I've got the bruises to prove it. So either we keep working together, or I make sure someone else knows what's happening out there." I wanted to be angry. Wanted to tell him he was an idiot for collecting evidence, for keeping records, for threatening me in my own living room while his shoulder was still purple from something that shouldn't exist. But I wasn't angry. I was tired. And he was right. He was already in it. Had been since the first job. Maybe since the moment he said yes without asking what the work involved. I leaned back in the recliner and closed my eyes for a second. My ribs flared. I ignored it. Fine, I said. He nodded once, put his phone away. Next job's April 19th, I told him. Same setup, different location. Okay. We're doing it different this time. How different? More gear, better warning systems, something loud if it gets close. He didn't ask what it was, didn't need to. I'll need a list, he said. I'll handle it. He stood up slowly, favoring his good shoulder. You need anything? No. He looked at me for another few seconds, then turned and walked out. I heard his Subaru start up and pull away. I sat in the recliner and stared at the ceiling. Then I got up. Took me longer than it should have. Ribs didn't want to cooperate. I grabbed my jacket and keys and headed out. The contract payment sat in an account I checked once a month. It wasn't a lot by some standards, but it was steady and it was cash and it didn't ask questions. I'd been saving most of it, putting it away for something undefined. Retirement maybe, or an emergency, or just the peace of mind that came with having a buffer. I burned through a third of it in one day. First stop was REI in Puyallup. Big store, too bright inside, smelled like new fabric and rubber. I walked past the rock climbing section and the kayak display and went straight to cold weather gear. A kid in his mid-20s with a name tag that said Teddy came over and asked if I needed help. He had shaggy blonde hair and the kind of smile that meant he actually liked his job. I told him I needed a cold weather sleep system rated for below 20 degrees, a compact shelter tarp, and a headlamp with a red light option. He didn't blink, just nodded and started pulling things off shelves. You heading up to Rainier? He asked. Maybe. This time of year you'll want something windproof too. Gets nasty above the tree line. I'll be in the trees. Cool. Yeah, this'll work then. He showed me a mummy bag that packed down to the size of a football and a tarp that weighed maybe 2 pounds. The headlamp had 3 settings and a strap that wouldn't slip. I took all of it. He rang me up at the counter, still smiling, still chatty. Asked if I wanted to sign up for the member rewards program. I said no. He bagged everything and handed it over. Stay safe out there, he said. Plan to. I left and threw the bag in the truck bed. Next stop was Harbor Freight in Tacoma. Opposite end of the spectrum. Dim fluorescent lights, concrete floors, everything packed tight on metal shelves. It smelled like oil and cardboard. I grabbed a cart and went down the aisles. Found motion sensors in aisle 7, the kind people used for driveways or sheds. Picked up 4. Grabbed a spool of heavy-duty cable in aisle 9 and a warehouse siren in aisle 12. The siren was the size of a dinner plate, and the box said it could hit 120 decibels. I figured that was loud enough. The cashier was a woman in her 30s with her hair pulled back tight and a name tag that said Margaret. She scanned everything without comment, her hands fast and efficient. Need batteries for these? She asked, tapping the motion sensor boxes. Yeah. She grabbed 2 packs from a display behind her and added them to the total. $143, she said. I handed her cash. She counted it, gave me back the change, and pushed the receipt across the counter. Next, she called, already looking past me. I loaded everything into the truck and checked my phone. 1 message from Craig asking if I needed a hand. I texted back no and kept moving. Last stop was a house in Spanaway. I'd found the listing on Craigslist the night before. Guy named Justin selling used medical furniture. No questions asked. The house was small, set back from the road with a gravel driveway that crunched under my tires. I parked and got out. A man in his 50s with a thick mustache and a denim jacket came out of the garage before I reached the door. You Gomez? He asked. Yeah. This way. I followed him into the garage. It was packed with stuff. Old furniture, stacked boxes, a workbench covered in tools. In the back corner sat an exam table with cracked vinyl padding and a dented medical cabinet with glass doors. "Table's solid," he said. "Cabinet's got some rust on the hinges, but it locks." I checked both. He was right. The table was heavy, metal frame, stable. The cabinet was beat up, but functional. "How much?" I asked. $200 for both." I didn't haggle, just pulled out the cash and handed it over. He counted it, nodded, and stuffed it in his jacket pocket. "You need help loading?" "No." He shrugged. "Your call." It took me 20 minutes to get both pieces into the truck bed. My ribs screamed the whole time. I ignored them. Justin watched from the garage doorway, didn't offer to help again. Just stood there until I finished and drove off. I made it back to my place a little after 3 in the afternoon. Unloading everything took another 30 minutes and left me sweating and dizzy. I got it all inside, though. Piled the gear in the corner of the living room and shoved the exam table and cabinet into the spare bedroom. Then I sat down in the recliner and didn't move for 2 hours. My phone buzzed once. Message from Craig. "Ready when you are." I didn't reply. Just closed my eyes and listened to the sound of my own breathing. I loaded everything into the truck bed in 3 trips. The motion sensors rattled in their packaging. The siren sat heavy in its box. I drove back to the rental in Ashford with the windows down because the cab smelled like new plastic and cardboard. The house was a single-story build from the 70s with vinyl siding and a carport that sagged on one side. I'd been renting it for 2 years. The landlord lived in Portland and never visited. Rent was cheap because the place sat a quarter mile off the main road and the septic backed up every winter. I didn't care about the septic. I hauled the bags and boxes inside and stacked them in the living room. The recliner was still in the corner where I'd been sleeping. The couch faced a blank wall because I never mounted the TV someone left behind. I stood there for a minute looking at the pile of gear, then got to work. First thing was the doors. Front and back both had standard builder-grade locks that wouldn't stop anyone serious. I pulled a cordless drill from the hall closet and mounted heavy slide bolts on the inside of each door, one at the top and one at the bottom, the kind you see on barn doors. I tested them twice. Solid. The windows were next. Ground floor, single pane, easy access. I couldn't replace them, but I could make them harder to open quietly. I wedged wooden dowels into the tracks on every window that opened. If something forced them, the dowels would snap and make noise. Not much, but enough. The motion sensors went up after that. I mounted 2 outside, one covering the front approach and one covering the back. The other 2 I set up inside, one in the hallway and one facing the kitchen. I linked them all to the siren and ran a test. The thing was loud enough to wake me from 3 rooms away. Loud enough to make my ribs ache just from the sound vibration. I powered it down and checked the battery backup. Good for 72 hours if the main went out. The sleep system and tarp stayed in their bags near the recliner. Backup plan if I needed to move fast and sleep somewhere that wasn't the house. Last thing was the spare bedroom. It was small, maybe 10 by 10, with a single window facing the carport and brown carpet that smelled like mildew. I'd been using it for storage. Boxes of old paperwork, a broken lamp, some tools I didn't need. I cleared it all out and stacked everything in the carport. Then I went back to Craigslist. Took me 2 days to find what I needed. A guy in Eatonville was selling an old medical exam table for $50. Said it came from a clinic that closed in the 90s. I drove out and met him in a garage that smelled like motor oil and sawdust. The table was scratched and the vinyl was cracked in places, but the frame was solid and it still adjusted. His name was Justin, maybe 60, with a gray beard and hands that shook a little when he helped me load it. He didn't ask why I wanted it. I didn't tell him. I set the table up in the spare room and covered it with a clean tarp. Then I restocked the supply kit I kept in the hall closet. Gauze, medical tape, antiseptic, scissors, 2 tourniquets, a box of nitrile gloves, and a suture kit I bought online and never opened. I added a bottle of hydrogen peroxide and a second bottle of isopropyl alcohol. The kit went on the shelf above the table where I could reach it fast. The room looked wrong, too clinical, but it worked. I stood in the doorway staring at the setup for a while. My ribs hurt. I'd been moving too much, lifting things I shouldn't. I went back to the recliner and sat down slow. The house felt different now, tighter, more controlled. I didn't know if that was better. The wiring was beyond me. I could mount sensors and run basic setups, but linking camera feeds and hardwiring a siren to a breaker panel wasn't something I trusted myself to do right. I needed someone who knew what they were doing and wouldn't ask questions. I found Rain Padilla through a guy I knew in Packwood who'd hired her to rewire his shop. He said she was fast, professional, and didn't talk much. That was enough for me. I called the number he gave me. She picked up on the third ring. I told her I had a residential job in Ashford, security setup, needed someone who could handle camera feeds and alarm integration. She asked about square footage and existing electrical. I gave her the basics. She said she could come out Thursday and quoted me an hourly rate that was fair. I said fine. Thursday came. She showed up right on time in a white van with her name and number stenciled on the side. I watched her pull into the carport from the front window. She got out, grabbed a toolbox and a canvas bag from the back, and walked up to the door without looking around much. I opened it before she knocked. "Ricky Gomez," I said. "Rain Padilla." She was maybe 5'7", solid build, dark curly hair pulled back in a low ponytail, steel toe boots, and work jeans with a tool belt already on. She looked at me, then past me into the house, then back at me. Professional. I stepped aside and let her in. She set her toolbox down near the door and walked through the front room, the kitchen, down the hall. I followed a few steps behind. She didn't comment on the recliner, or the bolted doors, or the motion sensors I'd already mounted. Just looked at everything with the same neutral expression. When we got to the spare room, she stopped in the doorway and glanced at the exam table. "Clinic setup?" she asked. "Something like that." She nodded and moved on. I'd left my pistol on the kitchen counter. Not holstered, just sitting there next to a coffee mug and my keys. Deliberate. I wanted to see how she'd react. She walked past it twice. Didn't flinch, didn't stare, didn't ask. Just kept her eyes on the electrical outlets and the breaker panel in the hallway. After she'd seen the whole place, she came back to the front room and set her bag down. "You want the camera feeds to terminate where?" she asked. "Living room. 1 monitor, multiple inputs. How many cameras?" 4. 2 exterior, 2 interior. She pulled a small notebook from her pocket and wrote something down. "The siren you've got, you want that hardwired or battery only?" "Hardwired with battery backup." "I can tie it into the breaker. You'll need a dedicated line so it doesn't trip if you overload the kitchen." "Fine." She made another note, then looked up. "Sensors already mounted?" "Yeah." "I'll check the connections. If they're linked right, I'll leave them. If not, I'll redo it." "Okay." She quoted me a timeline. 2 days, maybe 3, depending on how the old wiring held up. I told her that worked. She asked for half up front. I paid her cash. She didn't comment on that either. Rain worked clean. Didn't leave a mess, didn't ask for help, didn't try to make conversation. I stayed out of her way mostly. Checked in once or twice to make sure the setup was going where I wanted. She showed me the monitor feed on the second day. 4 clean quadrants, good resolution, motion-triggered recording. Exactly what I needed. When she finished, I paid her the rest. She packed up her tools and handed me a business card. "Anything stops working, call me," she said. "Got it." She left. I watched her van pull out and disappear down the road. I tested the system 3 times that night. Everything worked. I didn't know if I'd ever see her again. Turns out I would. David caught me 2 days later at the ranger station. I'd just come off a morning patrol, nothing unusual. and was logging mileage when he knocked on the door frame of the back office. "Ricky, got a minute?" I looked up. David Chang, my supervisor. Mid-40s, neat haircut, always looked like he'd just ironed his uniform. He had a folder tucked under one arm and an expression I recognized. Careful, concerned, not angry yet. "Sure," I said. He stepped in and closed the door behind him. That wasn't great. He set the folder on the desk between us but didn't open it. Just rested his hand on top. "I've been reviewing logs," he said. "Yours and a couple others. There are some inconsistencies." I waited. "Your mileage doesn't line up with the patrol routes you've been filing. You're logging more miles than the routes account for, sometimes double." I kept my face neutral. "I've been checking secondary trails, washouts, closures, stuff that doesn't always make it into the main log." "I figured," David said. "But when I cross-checked with maintenance requests, there's nothing matching those extra miles. No new reports, no follow-up tickets." I didn't say anything. He opened the folder, pulled out 2 sheets, incident reports, one from February, one from March, both mine. Both tied to animal encounters I'd filed as inconclusive. You reported possible bear activity near Mowich in February. No prints, no scat, no photos. Then in March, you filed another report for the Carbon River area. Same thing, possible large animal presence, but no physical evidence submitted. I filed what I saw. I know, but protocol says if you suspect large predator activity, you collect evidence. Hair samples, track casts, photos. You've done it before. You're good at it." He tapped the reports. "These 2 have nothing. Conditions weren't right. Ground was too hard for clean prints, and I didn't have the casting kit." David looked at me for a long moment. He didn't believe me. I could see it. "Ricky, if something's going on, personal stuff, health stuff, anything that's affecting your work, you can tell me. We can figure it out before it becomes a formal problem." "Nothing's going on." "You sure?" "Yeah." He exhaled slowly. Not a sigh, just a breath. "Tired." "All right. But I need you to tighten up the logs. Account for the mileage or stop running routes that aren't assigned. And if you file another animal report, I need evidence. Photos at minimum. Understood?" "Understood." He picked up the folder and stood, paused at the door. "I'm not trying to jam you up," he said. "I'm trying to help. If you need time off, take it. Administrative leave, no questions. Just say the word." "I'm good," I said. He nodded, didn't look convinced, but he left. I sat there staring at the mileage log on the screen. He was right. I'd been sloppy. Too focused on the contract jobs, not enough on keeping my cover clean. I closed the log and went back to rounds. George Jones showed up 3 days later. I was in the station filling out a trail condition report when David came through with a guy I'd never seen before. Tall, maybe 6'2", lean build. Dark hair combed back too neat. Pale skin, long nose, tight-lipped smile that didn't reach his eyes. He wore a clean government-style jacket, pressed slacks, polished boots. Auditor, I thought, or someone pretending to be. David saw me and waved me over. "Ricky, this is George Jones. He's with the Washington State Department of Natural Resources. Interagency review." George extended his hand. I shook it. His grip was firm. Too firm. And it held longer than it should have. Maybe 3 seconds, maybe 4. Long enough that I started to pull back before he let go. "Ranger Gomez," George said. His voice was low, even, polished. "I've been reviewing incident logs for the region. Your name came up several times. That right? You filed more animal encounter reports than anyone else in this district over the past 6 months." I glanced at David. He looked uncomfortable but didn't interrupt. "I work a lot of backcountry routes," I said. "Comes with the territory." "Of course." George smiled. Didn't look friendly. "I'm particularly interested in the reports from February and March, the ones near Mowich Lake and Carbon River. You noted possible large predator presence but didn't submit supporting evidence. Conditions weren't ideal for collection. Both times? Yeah. George pulled a small notebook from his jacket pocket, flipped it open. You also logged unusual mileage in those areas, routes that don't appear on the standard patrol schedule. I kept my face blank. I check secondary trails when I have time. Do you often have time? When it's needed. He made a note. Didn't look up. Have you encountered anything unusual on those secondary trails? Wildlife behavior, trail damage, signs of encampment? Nothing I didn't file. Nothing at all? No. He closed the notebook, looked at me with those flat gray eyes. Thank you, Ranger Gomez. I may have follow-up questions later. Sure. David walked him toward the front. I stayed where I was, watching them go. George moved smooth, controlled, every step deliberate. When they reached the door, George turned back and looked at me, held my eyes for a beat longer than normal. Then he left. David came back a minute later. That was weird, he said. Yeah. He didn't give me much advance notice, just showed up this morning with credentials and a review mandate. He asked about anyone else? Not yet, just you. I nodded, didn't say anything. David frowned. You okay? Fine. He didn't push it, just went back to his office. I stood there thinking about George's handshake, the way it held too long, and the smell. Wet soil, fresh dirt, like a root cellar. I'd smelled it the second his hand touched mine. I waited until David and George were both gone before I went to the front desk. The visitor log sat open near the sign-in clipboard. Standard procedure. Anyone who wasn't staff had to log their name, time in, time out, and reason for visit. I flipped back 2 pages. There. George Jones, DNR, Interagency Review, 0915. The signature was below the printed name, neat, controlled letters, but the pen had pressed down hard, really hard. The ink bled through the page and left an impression on the sheet below. I ran my finger over it. The indentation was deep enough to feel. I stared at it for a long time. Then I closed the log and walked out. I drove to Eatonville on a Saturday. Took the back roads because they were quieter and I wasn't in a hurry. My ribs still hurt, but the edge had dulled to something manageable if I didn't twist wrong or carry anything heavy. The sky was flat gray, no rain yet, but you could smell it coming. Bonnie Chavez lived in a single-story ranch at the end of a cul-de-sac with a chain-link fence around the front yard and 2 bird feeders hanging from the porch eave. I'd gotten her name from another ranger about a year back when I asked about old incident reports from the Carbon River area. He said Bonnie kept copies of everything from her dispatcher days and didn't mind questions if you called first. I'd called 2 days earlier, told her I wanted to ask about some unusual activity near the park. She said come by Saturday afternoon and bring cash for her time. $50. I said fine. I parked on the street and walked up the cracked driveway. Bonnie opened the door before I knocked. She was short, maybe 5'3", with silver hair cut practical and dark eyes that didn't waste time on pleasantries. She wore a cardigan and slacks and had reading glasses on a chain around her neck. Gomez, she said. Yeah. Come in. The living room smelled like old paper and lavender air freshener. Stacks of file boxes lined one wall, labeled by year in black marker. A coffee table sat in front of a worn couch with more folders stacked on top. Bonnie gestured for me to sit, and I did, slowly because of my ribs. She sat across from me in a recliner and folded her hands. You said unusual activity. Be specific. I told her. Not everything. Didn't mention the contract work, or the emails, or Craig's involvement beyond the basics. Just the encounter on the fire road. The thing that stepped out of the trees, walked into the truck, reached through the window. The hand on Craig's shoulder. The way it let go and walked away upright on 2 legs without running or looking back. Bonnie listened without interrupting. When I finished, she sat quiet for maybe 10 seconds, then stood and walked to the file boxes. She pulled one from the second shelf, brought it back, and set it on the coffee table between us. "Sounds like a mimic," she said. I waited. She opened the box and pulled out a manila folder, flipped it open. Inside were photocopied incident reports, handwritten notes, a few typed pages that looked older. She didn't hand them to me, just scanned them herself. Had 3 reports over 15 years that fit the pattern, she said. 2 from forestry workers, 1 from a hiker. Thing shows up wearing someone's face or body, but it's wrong. Off by enough that you notice. Moves strange. Talks strange if it talks at all. Copies imperfectly at first. She looked up at me. But it learns fast. Learns what? How to be what it's pretending to be. She closed the folder. It doesn't hunt for food, hunts for control. Wants to see what you'll do, how you'll react. It reveals itself just enough to make you reorganize your whole life around it. I thought about the cameras, the bolts on the doors, the siren system, the exam table in the spare room. "Why?" I said. "Don't know." Bonnie set the folder back in the box. "Best guess? It's testing. Seeing if you're worth keeping around or worth replacing." "Replacing?" She nodded. "Wears people like stolen clothing." That's what one of the forestry guys said before he quit and moved to Spokane. Said he saw his supervisor twice in one day. Once at the logging site, once walking out of the woods 3 miles away. Both looked right, but one of them smiled too long. I didn't say anything. Bonnie leaned back in her chair. "You want my advice? Don't engage. Don't try to track it or trap it. It's already watching you, and it'll keep watching until it gets bored or decides you're not useful. Then it'll either leave or it'll do something worse. Worse how?" That part nobody wrote down. She looked at me steady, because nobody who saw that part came back to file a report. I paid her the $50 in cash and left. The driver's side window had a smear on it I hadn't noticed before. Mud, maybe. Brownish gray and shaped wrong. I stopped next to the truck and looked closer. It was a palm print. 4 long grooves dragged through the mud where nails or claws had scraped the glass. The fingers were too long and the thumb sat too low. Beneath it, clean and perfect, was a print of my own thumb. I recognized the scar pattern from a cut I got 2 years back changing a tire. I stood there for maybe 30 seconds, then pulled my sleeve over my hand and wiped the whole thing off. Got back in the truck and drove. Craig came over Tuesday evening to help inventory supplies. I'd texted him a list of what we needed for the April 19th job, and he'd picked up half of it from a sporting goods place in Puyallup. I got the rest from 3 different stores because buying it all in one place felt stupid. We spread everything out on the kitchen table. 12-gauge shells, buckshot, and slugs. 2 boxes of 9mm for my sidearm. Spare batteries for the headlamps and motion sensors. 4 emergency flares. Paracord, zip ties, another tourniquet. Craig had brought energy bars and water bottles, the practical stuff I always forgot. He was moving better now. Still favored his left shoulder a little, but the bruises had faded to yellow-green, and he could lift his arm over his head without wincing. "This enough?" he said, nodding at the shells. "Should be. You planning to shoot it or scare it?" "Both." He didn't argue, just started packing things into 2 separate bags, 1 for each of us. I was counting batteries when the motion sensor pinged, not the siren. Just the soft double beep that meant something crossed the front driveway zone. Craig looked up. I walked into the living room and checked the monitor. The feed showed someone on the front steps. Rain Padilla. She was holding a coil of yellow cable in one hand and standing still, facing the door, wearing the same work jeans and jacket I'd seen before, hair in a ponytail. She wasn't knocking. I hadn't called her, hadn't scheduled anything. Craig came up behind me. That's the electrician, right? Yeah. Maybe something's wrong with the wiring. She'd call first. Craig moved toward the door. I'll ask her. I grabbed his arm. Don't! He stopped and looked at me. Ricky, we can't treat every visitor like a monster. I'm not. Then what? I pulled out my phone and dialed Rain's number. It rang. On the monitor feed, I watched the figure on the porch. A phone rang in her jacket pocket, loud enough to hear through the door. 4 rings. The figure didn't move, didn't reach for the phone, didn't look down or shift weight or do anything. Just stood there smiling. 5 rings. 6. Ricky, Craig said quietly. I ended the call. The ringing stopped. The figure kept smiling. I hit the light switches for the living room and kitchen. Everything went dark except the monitor glow. Behind the island, I said. Craig didn't argue this time. He moved fast and quiet, crouching behind the kitchen island with his back to the cabinets. I stayed at the monitor watching. The figure tilted its head. Slow. Too slow. Like it was remembering how the motion worked and taking time to get it right. I needed to see what it would do if I pushed. I went to the back door, unlocked it quietly, and stepped into the yard. Grabbed a handful of gravel from the drainage ditch and circled around to the side of the house where I could reach the porch roof overhang. I threw the gravel hard. It clattered across the metal roof like hail. The figure's head snapped toward the sound. Too fast. Inhuman fast. Then it stepped off the porch and started walking. Not toward the back. Toward the side of the house where the sound came from. I pressed flat against the siding and watched. It walked past me 3 feet away. Didn't look in my direction. The footfalls were wrong. Too even. No weight shift. No scuff of boots on gravel. Just steady taps like something mimicking the rhythm of steps without understanding the mechanics. It reached the corner of the house and turned. Kept walking. Circling. I moved back to the rear door, slipped inside, locked it, went to the monitor. The figure was doing a full loop, front steps to east side to back to west side. Slow and methodical. At each window it paused for 2 seconds. At each door it paused for 3. It wasn't trying to force entry. It was mapping. Learning where everything was, what opened where, which angles were blind. Craig was still behind the island, watching me. It's not trying to get in, I said. Then what's it doing? I watched the feed. The figure completed the circle and returned to the front steps. Stood in the same spot. Same smile. Getting ready, I said. The burner phone rang at 11 p.m. Not a text, not an email. An actual call with a ringtone I'd forgotten the Nokia even had. I stared at it for 3 full rings before I picked up. This is Edwards, the voice said. Female, flat. The same cadence from the texts, but hearing it out loud made it worse. No warmth, no filler, just words arranged in the right order. Cassidy Edwards. I'm your contract handler. I didn't say anything. Pickup is scheduled for Sunrise Point tonight at 0300. You'll deliver the asset as agreed. I sat forward in the recliner. My ribs didn't hurt anymore. Hadn't for a week. I never agreed to deliver anything. You accepted the contract in February. Payment has been consistent. Performance metrics indicate asset contact and ongoing surveillance. I set traps, I said. I didn't catch anything. Asset contact was confirmed March 27th on Forest Service Road 4412. Secondary contact April 6th at your residence. Surveillance remains active. She knew about the fire road. She knew about Rain standing on my porch. She knew I'd been watching. I need support, I said. Backup, equipment, something. Your performance assessment indicates adequate resourcefulness. Additional support is not approved at this time. It grabbed my partner hard enough to leave bruises the size of... Emotional responses are noted but not relevant to contract fulfillment. Pickup is scheduled for 0300 at Sunrise Point. Delivery is required. Continued payment is contingent on performance. I opened my mouth, closed it. Confirmation is required, Cassidy said. I looked at the monitor on the wall. 4 clean quadrants, 2 exterior feeds, 2 interior. Nothing moving. Rain had done good work. But Rain had also stood on my porch without knocking. And the Mimic had left my own thumbprint on my truck window in Eatonville. My house wasn't a fortress. It was a fixed target. Every camera showed it my routines. Every motion sensor taught it my patterns. And any neighbor, any driver, any person who walked past could already be wearing a mask I wouldn't recognize until it smiled too long. Confirmed, I said. Cassidy ended the call without another word. I texted Craig. Sunrise Point. Midnight. Bring everything. He responded 6 minutes later. Okay. I loaded the truck in silence. Shotgun, sidearm, ammunition. The siren and car battery I'd pulled from the trunk 2 days earlier and rewired in the carport. Flares, paracord, water. The sleep system I hadn't used yet. I didn't know what I'd need, so I brought all of it. Craig pulled up at 11:40 in his Subaru. He looked like he hadn't slept. Probably hadn't. His jacket hung better now, shoulder mostly healed, but his hands shook a little when he got out. You good? I asked. No, he said. You? No. He nodded and climbed into the passenger seat. I drove. The road up to Sunrise Point was empty. It was late April, still cold enough that the park didn't see much traffic after dark, and dirty snow clung to the roadside in uneven patches that hadn't melted yet. The higher we climbed, the thicker it got. I kept my speed steady and my headlights on low. Craig watched the tree line on his side without speaking. We reached the viewpoint at 12:30. I parked near the edge where the pavement dropped off into nothing, facing east, so the truck bed was toward the trees. Wind hit us the second I killed the engine. Cold, steady, the kind that erases tracks. Craig got out first. I followed, slower, and opened the tailgate. We unloaded in silence. Siren, battery, shotgun, sidearm. Craig checked his pistol twice, then holstered it and shoved his hands in his pockets. You think they'll actually show? He asked. Yeah. You think it'll come? Yeah. Craig looked at the tree line, then at me. What do we do if it doesn't? I didn't answer. We waited. The helicopter came at 2:58. I heard the rotors before I saw it. A low, heavy thud that grew louder until it filled the air and made my teeth ache. Then the shape. Black, no markings, hovering low over the tree line behind us like the pilot already knew exactly where we were standing. The spotlight hit a second later. Bright. White. It swept across the viewpoint once, then locked on me and Craig and didn't move. I raised one hand to shield my eyes. Craig stepped closer to me, his shoulder almost touching mine. The Mimic walked out of the trees. It wore David Chang's face. Not almost, not close, perfect. The same neat haircut, the same build, the same walk, steady, controlled, hands loose at his sides. It stopped about 20 feet away and looked at me with David's eyes. Gomez, it said, David's voice. Exact. My hand dropped to the shotgun slung across my chest. I didn't lift it. Not yet. You're not him, I said. Supervisor Chang is unavailable, it said. Still David's voice. Still his cadence. I'm handling this directly. Craig made a sound next to me. Not quite a gasp. I didn't look at him. You were supposed to deliver an asset, the Mimic said. It tilted its head slightly. David did that when he was annoyed. Where is it? I don't have it. You confirmed? I lied. The Mimic stepped forward. Just one step. The spotlight followed it, keeping all three of us lit. Behind me, the helicopter's rotors kicked up wind that pulled at my jacket and made my eyes water. Payment is contingent on performance, the Mimic said. It smiled. David smiled, but it lasted 2 seconds too long. "You've underperformed." Craig's hand moved toward his holster. I didn't stop him. "Walk away, Gomez," the mimic said. "Leave the asset. We'll handle the rest." It wasn't talking about the thing in the woods. It was talking about Craig. Craig pulled his pistol. His hand shook so hard the barrel wavered, but he kept it up, aimed center mass at David Chang's face. I couldn't shoot. Not at that face. Not with a helicopter overhead and a spotlight that would show every witness exactly what I'd done. Murder. That's what it would look like. So I did something else. I triggered the siren. The shriek tore through the air at 120 decibels, louder than the rotors, louder than the wind. The mimic flinched, actually flinched, and its face slipped. Just for a second. The smile stretched too wide. The eyes didn't blink right. The helicopter lurched. The spotlight swung wild, and I caught a glimpse of the pilot, Nash Fernandez, I'd learn his name later, fighting the controls as the noise threw off his hover. The beam swung back and locked on the mimic mid-change. Its jaw unhinged, not like a snake. Worse. The skin split at the corners and pulled back, and the arms lengthened, fingers stretching into something that didn't have nails anymore. "Run," I said. I grabbed Craig's jacket and yanked him toward the slope. He stumbled, still holding the pistol, and I half dragged him down the hill toward the visitor restroom about 50 yards below the viewpoint. The spotlight followed us, jerking and swinging as Nash tried to keep us in frame. When the helicopter dipped lower to follow, I stopped, turned, and fired at the tail rotor assembly. The shotgun kicked hard. Sparks flew off the metal housing. The helicopter pulled up fast, too fast, and swung east, climbing to safer altitude. The mimic lunged. It didn't run. It just moved, faster than anything that size should. And suddenly it was on us. Craig jammed something into its mouth, a tourniquet kit I realized later, and bought us maybe 1 second. I dragged him through the snow, stumbling, boots skidding on ice I couldn't see, and didn't stop until the siren faded behind us and the wind swallowed everything else. By dawn, the helicopter was gone. The mimic was gone too. I didn't know if it left on its own or if they'd pulled it out some other way. Didn't matter. It wasn't there anymore. Craig sat against a tree with his left arm hanging wrong. Dislocated shoulder. I could see it from the angle. 2 of his fingers were white at the tips. Frostbite. Early stage. Probably fixable. He looked at me. "We're done, right?" "Yeah." "Good." I got him to his feet and back to the truck. The siren was still wailing when we reached the viewpoint. I shut it off, loaded everything I could carry, and left the rest. I knew what I'd just done. I'd burned the contract. I'd fired on a helicopter. I'd left evidence at Sunrise Point that could become a federal problem if anyone looked hard enough. I didn't care. I drove Craig to Enum Claw and walked him into the ER at 6 a.m. A nurse met us at the intake desk. I told her he'd been attacked on the road. She didn't ask for details. Timothy Kelly came out 20 minutes later, mid-40s, calm. He reset Craig's shoulder without flinching and ordered observation for the frostbite. "You should get checked too," he said to me. "I'm fine." He looked at me for a few seconds, then nodded and walked Craig to a room. I tried calling Bonnie on the drive back. No answer. I tried again an hour later. Still nothing. By noon, David Chang was listed as missing. I went back to the Ashford house and tore out every camera. I started with the exterior mounts, yanking the housings off the siding and pulling the cables through the walls. Then, the interior ones. I ripped the monitor off the living room wall and threw it in the carport. I pulled every wire Rain had installed, every connection she'd made, and piled it all in the driveway. It took 4 hours. When I finished, the walls had holes where the mounts had been, and the breaker panel hung open with half the lines disconnected. I stood in the living room and looked at the empty corners. Maybe I just destroyed the only defenses I had. Maybe the mimic had already been watching through those feeds, learning my routines, waiting for me to feel safe. I didn't know, but I couldn't risk it anymore. I sat down in the recliner and closed my eyes.